jail is not an option for drug users, because what a jail is supposed to be a secluded place where somebody is put for behavioral change. When somebody that is doing something harmful to the society or something that is not good or is not accepted in the society, is supposed to be put in a place of behavioral change. But unfortunately, most of our jails, they do more harm than good. A jail is supposed to comprise of is supposed to include even psychiatrists, counselors, and physiotherapists, so that the person will go through, after going through, by going through them, it's like a sort of rehabilitation. It's supposed to be a sort of rehabilitation, but unfortunately in Nigeria, in fact, it's more worse. By the time a drug user gets there, in fact, it gets even more worse than when he entered. By the time he's coming out, it's getting more worse. So we don't have enough facilities to now begin to take drug users to jail. There is no enough facilities in the jail where they can be rehabilitated before they go to jail. You know, drug use is an habit. And I believe by taking them to jail, they cannot outgrow the habit. Like in developed countries, you can take them to jail, fine, because it's supposed to be, it's a rehabilitation center. They have so many facilities that are included. But in Nigeria, the facilities are not available. Most of them, the way they behave, they even get more worse. They even go into crime more. It makes them to get deep in more into crimes because they go to jail. So I believe a rehabilitation center is better than a jail, because our jails in Nigeria is not a reforming center. It does much more harm than good. Because even when you see them, the way they look, most of them will have emancipated, and there is no way they can even, if you are in a jail, if it's in developed countries and you are in a jail, there is a way they make sure they inculcate you with your family. They try to bring you up into society to join you with your family again. But now in Nigeria, it's not possible. By the time they see you, the way you will be looking, most of them, they look so unkempt. I mean, they look so terrible. And it's not healthy. Most of our jails are not healthy. So they are not supposed to go to jail. They are supposed to go to a rehab center where they can see a counselor, where they can have access to medical facilities, to psychiatrists, where they can talk to them. And by the time they see counselors, before you know it, we have seen so many people that have been counseled out of drugs. So it's not a criminal offense. I'll not turn them to criminals. What about those that are bringing the drugs in? And when you call a drug user a criminal, what about the person that is bringing in the drugs into the country? What about the person that is a drug baron that is selling the drugs? So when you are calling the drug user a criminal, what about the person that brought the drugs in? What about the person that is selling the drugs? So most of it, we just believe by the time we begin to punish them, in fact, everyday drug is just growing. It is growing. It cannot. It's a kind of. It's an evil that has even taken over our society. And the most unfortunate thing is that now we have them in secondary schools. People, they are now abusing codeine. Use of codeine is so rampant because we see it as a criminal offense instead of seeing it as where we can rehabilitate and bring people together. You can correct in love. By the time you show love to most of them, and before you know it, some people can, because of that, it's because they lack love. It's because there is an issue. Something happened. That was why there was a gap. That was what led people into drugs. But we can be able to find out and do the necessary, the needful. Then most people can come out of drugs. So you show them love. You don't need to stigmatize them, or you take them to jail, or you segregate them somewhere that no, this one they don't belong here.
My name's Awoshika Harold Olumuyiwa. I am a drug user. I reside in Lagos, Nigeria. My first encounter with drugs was when I was about 7 years old, because the community I stayed then was Idioro, in the heart of Mushin in Lagos. My uncle used to send me to go and buy marijuana, and in the process, the little bit that he smoked left on the table, I used to run over, have some drag. Bit by bit, I started making friends who are drug users. And by the time I was 11, I was a full-fledged marijuana smoker. By the time I got to 12 years old, 13, I traveled to London. And while I was in London, I got involved in narcotics, that is cocaine and heroin. I have a girlfriend who introduced me to cocaine. She stays in a Brixton area of London, while I stays in a Balham, both in southwest London. We were doing drugs while I was in school, but when my mom got to know that I was a drug user, she had to send me back to Nigeria. Coming back to Nigeria, I went back to Mushin, where my grandmom stays. And by then, in 1984-85, drug had become rampant. That is, narcotics had become very rampant in Mushin. And since it was something I had been doing before, it was easy for me to assimilate into this society. That was how I became a drug addict.
On criminalization of drug users, we have to first look at the reason why criminalization was adopted. It was adopted so that the drug, the circulation, the effect it has on people can be curbed. Thinking that when those who are into drugs, when those who use it, when they are arrested and criminalized, then its rate of consumption in circulation will be reduced. But the opposite has been the case. If you look at what is going on internationally, especially in Nigeria, we discover that criminalization has not solved that problem of drug circulation and its consumption in the country. So this now has to take us to the act that supported the formulation or the criminalization of drug users. If you go and check the ADLE Act, we discover that it is there, that criminalization is one of the measures they can use to curb the drug use, its circulation, and its effects. When we look at the NDLE Act, that is the national agency that's responsible for the control of drugs and its circulation, we discover that one of the things that was stated there that they can do to curb the menace of drugs is criminalization of drug users. Then, if you now go further to read the Act, we discover that one of their duties is to provide rehabilitation centers for drug users so that even when someone who's into drug had been arrested, they can take that person to a rehab, rehabilitate him, and send him back to the society so that he can be useful. But opposite has been the case. Criminalization of drug users is not with that aim anymore. It is just with the aim of throwing them into jail and then making them more hardened in the act. In my experience over time, I've visited their prisons and I've had the opportunity of interviewing people who have been jailed. I discovered that many of them who are placed in the jail because of drug use go there to even become more, let me say, professional in the use of drugs, because the set of people they mingle with there are those that teach them more on things they can use, that even get them high on different kinds of new drugs that have been discovered that they can be used. And there are news that we do hear from these people that even those who are supposed to be responsible for keeping them safe in those prisons are the ones that they send to get these drugs for them. So we discover that those, the agency that is supposed to be in charge, that are supposed to take charge of rehab, they're supposed to take charge of control of drug in circulation, they are now the ones that are not really fulfilling that role, because somehow they have either derailed from it, or the effort they are trying to put forth is not becoming productive, and they have been able to see that over time.
Sometime in the past, while we were in the joints, one day the joint was raided by men of the Lagos State Task Force in collaboration with drug enforcement agencies. I was taken to a station where we were locked up for about 3-4 days, later taken to a court, and I ended up in a Kirikiri prisons in Lagos. While I was in prison, it was a hell, because prison was meant to be a reformative. But while I was in there, instead of me being reformed, I was even becoming more hardened, because the wardens who were meant to correct, so to say, were even the ones that were assisting us in bringing in marijuana, even cocaine, depending on how much you have to offer. Even while in the prisons, we were even taught, because there used to be storyline every night. And some of these hardened criminals, they will come and start telling stories, even giving contacts of their acolytes in the streets, where you can go and collect guns and do all sort of things, you know. The prison was very, very populated, somewhere that is meant to hold in about 40, 50, we end up with about 90 people. Even at times we were running into hundreds, that some of us will sit down at night. We can't sleep because it is too crowded. And at the end of the day, if one is sick and you go to the dispensary, you will be given sort of all these expired drugs. Like the paracetamol they give in there were the ones that are expired. Even they will tell you that there is no drugs, you need to buy it. And even when they go and buy from outside, you pay exorbitant prices. Many people are dying. At least while I was in prison, I stayed there for about 4 months before eventually I was released by the courts. But while I was in the prisons, I counted about 4 or 5 people dying in a week. By the time we wake up in the morning, the person sleeping next to you is dead. And they'll just say 1 blanket missing, no case. Without the parents or anybody or the guardians being notified, they might bury some, and at times they will take some to the mortuary and then just dispose the bodies like that. You know, in the end, we see that the prison that is meant to reform is even helping in molding hardened criminals, because they say every drug user is a criminal. Before going to the prisons, I was not a criminal. But at the end of the day, when I came out of the prisons, I was a thief. I was a cheat. I was even a scorn, because I learned so many tricks in prison that I can get money without raising any sweat. I learned so many things, like stealing, pocket picking. Even we went to the extent of telling lies.
My name is Kola Oleoriloa. I'm a filmmaker. I'm from Nigeria. I use film to advocate for health and rights of people who use drugs in Africa. Basically, based on my experience on the field, I feel the issue of drug is critical, and the role that Federal Republic of Nigeria is playing in the area of control of drug use, it's like we are deceiving ourselves in this country. Because if you look at the money, the amount of money the federal government is investing in controlling of drugs, you know, by jailing people, by seizing drugs, by all these means, if you can channel that money into a healthcare for drug users by having a state-of-the-art rehabilitation center for them to go and access healthcare, I think the drug will drop, the rate will drop. You know, for instance, there was a time we were recording, we are documenting the lives of drug users in a bunk. The law enforcement agents came, they saw me, recording them, telling the story, recording their story while they are sharing their experience. They arrested us because, well, fine. They saw some crack, cocaine, heroin in the bunk. They seized the camera, the mic, everything, and they even arrested some people there. And up to now, the courts, the guys are still on it, because they arrested the bunk owner, they arrested everybody. Arrest will never solve anything in this Nigeria. I'm sure when I was growing up, I've been hearing about cocaine, heroin, and all these things and all these drugs as illegal drugs. But by now I'm over 30, and right now we can still find all these drugs on the streets. So then why are we now wasting money? I want to implore the Federal Republic of Nigeria to change our policy. We need to change it. It's not working. It's not working. In the recent, like maybe last year or so, they banned cocaine. I mean, they banned codeine. But right now, there are lots of drugs on the streets. Now they tell you, Oja boss Elara. That means the drug you took burst into your bloodstream. That's another drug. When you go to bunks now, you'll see them that they put something like tablet. They will ground it and they will put it on the marijuana and mold it and smoke it. That's another drug because they feel the codeine is so high now. The price is so high. So the government needs to change the drug policy that we have. We need to change it. Because if you look at Ghana and Senegal, who are also West African countries, they've changed their drug policy. Now they have harm reduction. In Senegal, they have harm reduction why people can go to a clinic and take a methadone and feel all right and go back to their home instead of going to the street, going to the bunk and go there and exchanging needles and all this stuff. In a very controlled room, where we have counselors, where we have a medical personnel that will attend to you, why you can tell them this is what I'm facing in my health, I have a headache and all this stuff. But in settings like in jail, nobody cares. By the time you are coming out of jail, then you are becoming even more hardened criminal. You know, more hardened, more stronger than when you enter. So I'm asking the government to change this policy.
Even at times we told lies, we move around pretending to be what we were not. You know, there are so many tricks that we were taught in the prison. That is by the inmates, not the authority. So it is the inmates, because the inmates will tell you that, oh boy, wetin carry you come? You say, you be drug user. Drug user, were you a thief? No. Are you this? No. Then what are you doing here? Okay, when you go outside, go to so place, do this, do that. You know, we were given so many directions while in the prisons, and at the end, coming out of the prisons, I was even more hardened than going to the prisons. That is why I will not support that every drug user is a criminal. Drug usage is an habit, and the prison is meant to reform, is meant to rehabilitate. Imagine when government will tell you that they are spending 17,000 naira on one prisoner per day, and at the end of the day, the food they will give, even the beans we eat in the morning, a dog on the streets cannot even eat such a beans. At the end of the day, they spend nothing less than 10 naira or 15 naira on each prisoner. And yet they use this prison as a conduit to siphon money without even minding what is going on in there. While we were there, we were supposed to be learning vocations. But instead of vocations, the prisoners, the wardens will take us out, and then on contract job, you know, they may take us to some places. You go and do some millionaire jobs for all these rich men. The wardens will collect the money. They will bring us back in there, and then they say they are reforming. What are they reforming? They are not reforming anything. Rather, the prisons should be closed, and a more better rehabilitation center for drug addicts should be inculcated. Like now, they say the NDLA, because there was a time we met one of the NDLA chiefs. He said that they have a rehabilitation center, they have this, they have that. I've never seen one in existence in Nigeria. I've never seen one. Rather, what we have is a poultry where they pack human beings like chicken, lock them up, give them trash to eat, and at the end of the day send these same people back into the streets. At least imagine somebody who was incarcerated for 8-9 months, and such a person has no vocation, no education, no form of experience. If that person should come out, if he were to be a petty thief before, such a person will be an hardened criminal. That is where you see people graduating from petty stealing into armed robbery, kidnapping, and all these other vices you have on the streets.
If we look at the amount a country like the United States of America has spent on criminalization of drug users between the year 1970 and the year 2007, we discover that it ran into trillions of dollars. Yet, the menace of drug never reduced. Rather, they are having it more on the high side. But when some states started adopting different laws, looking at it from different perspectives, they were able to curb it in that they were able to use tax, its legalization, its supply control, demand control as measures that have been able to help them to curb the menace of drugs, both in circulation and in monitoring the quantity that people even take. So if such is adopted in a country like Nigeria, they'll be able to have more foreign exchange through it. Because if you look at something like marijuana, we discover that it is produced in a very large quantity in some parts of the country. And this product has its health benefits it gives people. In fact, of the over 700 chemical components of marijuana, it is banned just because of one of those components. That is its additiveness and the hyperactivity it can make people use. How about looking at the remaining over 600 or close to 700 chemical components and see the best use for which they can be kept? Some that go into these drugs don't use it because they want to become criminals, because drug has never been proven to be responsible for making someone a criminal. Rather, the use of drug or the effects of drug can trigger what someone has already been having in mind. So if you keep banning drugs like codeine, like tramadol, these drugs had their main purposes in the society before. They are introduced into by pharmacies, by those who are responsible for production of drugs into society for a purpose. But if we keep banning them, that means that we are making these drugs forfeit the purpose for which they were made. And one funny thing is, a drug user will always find an alternative to the drug he's using. If one is banned, another will come up. If we ban codeine, if we ban tramadol, can we buy gum that is used in the production of chairs and some other things, bags and so on, that people sniff? No. Can we buy analgesics that people use when they are down, or maybe sportsmen, that the analgesics they use to help them to become more active? No. But all of these things can also be abused. So if we're able to set measures in place that will put all these things in check, in terms of quantity, in terms of supply, in terms of demand, we'll be able to see that we will win more on drugs. Then how about the youths that we are incarcerating? These youths have a whole lot of things on their head. In fact, it is discovered over time from the experiences I've had with drug users that the most enlightened communities, the most educated communities are communities of people who use drugs. I've had the opportunity of meeting a drug user who can speak over 7 international languages, talk of Arabic, talk of Spanish, talk of German, talk of English, French, and so on. Yet, we say because this kind of person is using drugs, they will now go and throw him in a prison. Are we making him make the best use of his knowledge? Are we making them, especially those who are professionals, probably let's say lawyers and doctors and some others among them, is the prison where they are going to be productive to the society, or they have been in the society that will make them productive for us in the society? So all of these are things we need to look at before criminalizing drug users. It has never been proved to work over the years, and from the way I have observed, it will never work, because the more the criminalization, the more the people that are going to drugs, and the more the people that are arrested. So, which means that something has to be done. The criminalization has to be put in check, and then we have to transgress to policy change. And when I'm talking about policy change, what does this mean?
it means that we look at what we've been doing over time, see whether is working or it has proved to work. Then if it is working, what has been working in that? We adopt that. Then what has not been working, and we do away with that. And from what I've observed earlier and from what I've said earlier, we've seen that criminalization is not working. So what can be done? That means that we need to support the drug users. What if we go to their communities, to where these people are domiciled? What if we go and encourage them? What if we go and tutor them on behavioral change communication? What if we go and enlighten them on how they can best practice the drug use they are engaging in, especially those who are injecting drugs? We have some who inject drugs, and in the process they share needles with others. How about making them know the dangers involved in sharing needles? How about making them know that it is good they have safe sex when they are on drugs, so that these people, when they go to their home, some they have a wife at home, they have children, and they still have concubines. So if we don't support them in their drug use in their communities, then it means that we are even causing more harm to those who are not using the drugs, because this set of people are relating with us every day. In fact, if we say that we should go and jail all those who are into drugs, I am sorry that we may have more people in jail than we have in the society. So when we look at this policy change, look at how we can control the supply, how we can control the demand, and how we can make something, our government can generate income through tax and all other forms of foreign exchange income through it. Then we'll discover that we'll be able to win the war on drug. We can take examples of countries that have been able to do this, states in the United States that have been able to do this, and are seeing the very good benefits of it. If we look at the states in the United States that were able to adopt the model of not criminalizing drug users, they're able to adopt models of controlling the demand and the supply control, we'll discover that these states were able to generate far more than the tax or revenue they projected, because more people now freely came out, even those who have been in hiding, that didn't want people to know that they were into drugs, that would ordinarily not come to a place to seek for help because they are drug users, were able to come out to buy these drugs. And when they have issues in the process of reading the drug, can freely walk into the health centers and get treatment from them, rather than being afraid because of the stigmatization that they are going to be facing when they get to all these places. And if you now look at Nigeria and compare the successes that have been achieved in states like this in the United States, we discover that Nigeria can even achieve more of this. Because one, drug users run from medical care. They are not confident enough to go to healthcare facilities. Let me cite an example for you. One of the projects I was able to complete recently, I met a drug user that came to buy marijuana. And then, as I was about going, he was just telling the controller of the bank where he came to buy the drug that he's sick, that he thinks he has malaria. He has been treating it for over 3 weeks. The malaria is not going. Then I called him and said, why didn't you go to an healthcare facility? He said, I can't go because police are always on the road though. And when they see me, immediately they look at you, they know I'm using drugs. So there's no I can go, because on my way going, they will arrest me. So we can imagine, what if this drug user, what if he's HIV positive and he doesn't know? And he still keeps having sexual relations with his wife and concubines and some others. We discover that we are, through criminalization, encouraging the spread of all these infections. And when you go and look at the WHO, World Health Organization model, on people who have the spread of HIV and hepatitis among them the most, people who inject drugs are one of them, and female sex workers, the men who have sex with men. So on people who inject drugs, we discover that if we are able to have a policy change in Nigeria, that will be able to make the demand for these drugs something that will be visible by those who demand for it. They'll be able to come to us and say, I want to buy this. Then we'll be able to identify them. And once we are able to identify them, then when they have challenges, we will also be able to know how best to assist them. Then how about setting up rehabs? If we go and ask the drug law enforcement agencies in Nigeria, the amount the government spends on them to curb drugs on an annual basis, I'm very sure we'll be alarmed. because the amount it costs to buy guns they use is there. The amount it costs to buy the fuel for their cars that they used to chase these people is there. The amount they pay on artificial intelligence to get all these drug users is there. What if all this money is channeled, or part of this money is channeled towards healthcare? What if it is channeled towards the treatment of drug users? Don't you think we'll be able to have more success in this regard? Don't you think that we'll have more people that will be able to seek for treatment, that will be able to come out openly when they are faced with challenges that they've been, that drug use has caused them? Don't you think they'll be able to come out and then we have a freer society? Don't you think that our prisons will be decongested such that we will not have people who use drugs in prisons? Rather, we have the real criminals, those who probably are making this drug be in circulation in excess.
For me, every drug user is not a criminal. Rather, is somebody who developed an habit over time, and such habits could be corrected with proper counseling and a genuine rehabilitation. The government has a place, a part to play. The parents, the family, the society, even the drug user himself has a role to play in this rehabilitation. And at the end of the day, if we all join hands together and come and work sincerely, that is faithfully and truthfully, without any form of mincing with words or policy jungling like what we have in Abuja, that all these senators are doing, and just siphoning money, wasting people's life and time, we can come out of this menace. Nobody was born to be a drug user. It is an habit, and over time, with the help of everybody, it's an all-inclusive participation, the government, the family, the church, the society, friends, everybody, we can overcome this menace called drug addiction in Nigeria. Thank you.